Hello and welcome to Coffee Lovers TV. On the show today, I'm going to show you how to dive in and make great coffee at home using a French press. This process is really straightforward, so what I'm actually going to do is just start brewing and then talk about a few things while I'm doing that. So I'm adding my coffee first, of course, and I'll go over this when while I'm brewing, but I'm adding about 56 grams of coffee, and then I'm just filling this up with hot water. Then once filled, I'm going to give this a quick stir just to make sure that all the grounds are getting wet. And then I'm going to let this sit for 4 minutes. So I'm just gonna start a little timer there. Also, usually I like to cover it slightly, not touching the grounds, just keeping some of that heat in. So the French press is one of my favorite methods to recommend for people who are just getting into brewing coffee at home. One of the reasons for that is that it takes really no special technique. As you saw, I literally just filled it with the grounds and added the water and gave it a little stir. Now we're waiting for 4 minutes. There's nothing more complicated than that. One of the great things about learning how to brew at home with the French press is that it's going to teach you all about coffee ratios and grind size, assuming you want to get into making really good coffee with the French press. Because that's really all that matters, is what the grind size is of your coffee and how much coffee to water that you use. So first, on the ratio of the water to the grounds, what you saw me add there was about 56 grams of coffee. I know that this French press holds about 900 milliliters of water, which is about 900 grams. When brewing coffee, we often talk about the ratio of coffee to water, and it's always in terms of grams. Brewing by weight is really important for consistency, and you're gonna see at the end, I'm gonna give you some troubleshooting tips. And if you're not brewing by weight, it's gonna be really hard to figure out what's wrong or how to make your coffee better. The reason why brewing by volume is not consistent is because the size of one coffee is different from another. Down to the size of the beans, how it's roasted, everything changes. So a scoop of one coffee gives you a different amount from as a scoop of another. And what's important in brewing is the actual mass of the coffee. It's the water going through all the grounds there and taking out the soluble components, and that's what's giving you the brew. So what matters is the mass of the coffee, not the volume of it. So we brew by weight. Now, I'm using a fancy Akai scale here, which is a really fantastic scale, especially for brewing coffee, but you can, of course, use a cheap food scale. That's just fine. And I like to brew on the scale. And in terms of ratios, what I always recommend starting with is 16:1. That means 16 grams of water for every gram of coffee that you use. So like I said, I know that this French press holds about 900 grams of water, which means I can put in about 56 grams of coffee and get a good cup. And that's as straightforward as it is. You can go kind of up and down from that. You can do 17:1, you can do 15 or 14. It's a good way to kind of experiment, but starting at about 16 will make it possible for you to make sure that you are using the correct grind size. Grind size for the French press is coarse. Using kind of kosher salt is a pretty decent guide. I like to do kind of between kosher salt and sesame seeds. That'll kind of give you a somewhat of an idea. If you're grinding coffee yourself and your grinder has a French press setting, just start with that. If you're getting coffee pre-ground, if you're like going to a roaster and getting a roaster's coffee, you can ask them to grind it for you for a French press. If you're grinding in the grocery store, those grinders have a French press setting. Just start from there. If you're buying coffee off a shelf that has been ground, you want to make sure that it says it's been ground specifically for a French press. Otherwise, it's probably going to be too fine, and then you're going to have some problems. Before we get into just some of the simple troubleshooting, first off, it's been sitting for about 5 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to press down. So I like to go a little bit slow when I'm pressing my French press. And the only reason for going slow is to make sure, like I could push down really fast, but some of the grinds are going to slip up the side. So going slower kind of makes sure that you keep as much of the grounds down as possible. Another thing you can do to help with that, which I could have done here really easily, but I didn't do, is just give it a quick stir before pressing. That'll make a lot of the grinds just fall to the bottom straight away. But the actual pressing action in a French press doesn't have an impact on the brew. It's just about keeping the grinds out of your cup. Unless you get a fancier French press that has double filters or baskets or that sort of thing, you're getting a standard French press, you're gonna end up with some grinds in your cup. And you know what? That's just okay. That's just fine, whatever. But hey, now we have some really great coffee. One quick tip, since we're here, since I just did this, I've got a decent amount of coffee in here. If it's just me drinking this, depending on how fast you drink this, you may want to transfer your coffee to another container, just because that's going to continue to brew down there, and your last cup can end up kind of nasty. It depends on how long it's in there. So before getting into the troubleshooting, just one quick note on the water. So like I said, you don't need any special techniques. You don't need a special kettle. You probably saw me pour with this. You don't need a gooseneck kettle. It just happens to be what I have. You could boil the water in a pan and pour it in here. Like the way the water goes into the French press doesn't matter. Just as long as you get the water in there and then let it sit for 4 minutes and then press, that's all that matters. But one very important caveat, do not put water that has just boiled into the French press. If the water's too hot, you can scald the grounds, and that's not gonna be very good. What I like to do is I'll let the kettle boil and then I'll sit it off the heat for a minute, and that's usually just fine. You can get more specific. You can use a thermometer, and the ideal range is 202 to 205 degrees Fahrenheit. So if you wanna get into that, you can measure the temperature of your water, and that's just okay. I used to do that, but I'm a little lazy. So some quick notes on troubleshooting. Now, if you follow the steps that I just gave you, if you do a coarse grind, even a medium coarse grind, you know, the French press is really forgiving on grind size. You can get a really good cup with a variety of grind sizes, but if you're too fine or you're too coarse, you're gonna notice some things. Assuming that you're using a 16:1 ratio like I spoke of, if you brew your French press and you find that it's too bitter or too strong in flavor, like it's really hitting your tongue really hard, then your grind size might be too small. Really bitter coffee, assuming you're using the approximate 16:1 ratio, can indicate that your grind size is too small. On the other side of things, if it tastes like sour, watery and sour, then that can mean that your grind size is too coarse. So this is a good reason to use ratios to brew coffee by weight, because it can help you figure out how to grind using your grinder, or what to ask for from your roaster, or how to grind in the store. On the flip side, if you're certain that your grind size is correct, you can adjust your ratio similarly. So assuming that you're absolutely positive your grind size is correct and you're brewing at 16:1 ratio, like I am here, if I thought this coffee tasted too strong or too bitter, then I would use more water to coffee. So I would move up. I would go up to 16 or 17 or 18 and see how that tasted. On the flip side, if it was too sour, then I would use less water in the brewing, you know, going down, go 15, 14, etc. So that's just some quick troubleshooting for your French press. Other than that, that's all there is to it. Very simple. Add your coffee, add your water, wait 4 minutes, press carefully, and enjoy a delicious French press. You can read more of my thoughts on the French press and read my ultimate French press guide in the link below. Please like the video, comment below, let me know your thoughts, any questions you have on the French press, subscribe to Coffee Lovers TV, don't miss out on any of the good stuff that I have, and subscribe to Coffee Lovers Magazine. Just go to coffeeloversmag.com. I'll link to that below the video as well, and have a great week. That's good.